Hello, all you beautiful people out there. What is going on? This is your friend Britik coming at you fast with a deck building guide. And I'm going to try and break down my thought process of building decks and make it as simple as possible for people to follow. For those of you who are struggling to understand how to build a good deck for your hero, what to look for, and how to just generally make a powerful deck with a bunch of versatile cards that will help you in a lot of different situations. So let's just make a deck together, and I can give you guys some pointers on how to make this deck. I'll try and go as quick as possible while also being as descriptive as possible with my process. So usually when you make decks, you can make them generally because you don't have to assign decks anymore to heroes. They can just be out there and you can play any hero you want and then just pick up the deck and use it. But I would strongly recommend building individual decks around individual heroes and play to their strengths. So for example, let's build a deck for Rampage. I love jungling. I'm a jungler main. So let's make a deck for Rampage. I actually have not made a deck for Rampage. So this will be great because this will just be a live process as well. So I know that junglers really need a lot of sustain, and growth has a good amount of sustain. It will make you tanky, it will make you resistant inside the jungle and outside when you go into the lanes to gank. And then also chaos is a really good card for damaging, just straight up damage and just being relentless, and that really works well with Rampage's playstyle, especially when he enrages and ults in, leaps in, uses his rock. He's just really all up in your face. So chaos is also a great affinity for Rampage. So that's how you want to talk about affinities. You want to think about the hero, think about their abilities, and think about how the affinities would play to those strengths. Now I have to think about my attributes. So how should I build Rampage? Well, I want him to be tanky and also want him to have a bit of damage. I want him to be kind of like a bruiser. I'm not going to worry too much about mana because he is a jungler and his abilities don't require too much mana except for his rock, but that's why we have river buffs. So all in all, he's not mana hungry like, let's say, a Gideon would be. We don't really have to worry about that, so that lets us focus on other things. So when I build a deck, I like to think of it as a sandwich. You have your bottom loaf of bread, and you have your top loaf of bread, and you have everything in the middle, your meat, your cheese, your veggies, whatever you like to put on your sandwich. I don't know. That's not my business. So what I mean by that is start off with your early game cards, your 1-point cards, and then do your late game cards, your final cards, the cards that you think about that you think will be in the late game. You're not going to replace any cards. It's just going to be the most perfect combination. So let's start off with early game. As a jungler, we understand that we have to kill and clear minions very quickly. So something like Demolitionist would be pretty good, where you deal 12 bonus damage to non-hero units, and also structures if you're helping your team, push a lane as a jungler. So Demolition is a good one to have because it's also one agility. And like we said earlier, we want to be dealing damage but also being tanky, so we're going to be focusing in agility and vitality, not so much in intellect. So we're not going to worry too much about chanting Shaman. Exoskeleton is also a really great early game card. Reduce damage taken from enemy heroes by 8. This is just overall great. You're tankier, you take less damage, and it helps you in the early game very well. And then also Living Guardian is a great card as well. Basic attacks hit grant a stack of 2 basic armor for 10 seconds. This effect can stack up to 10 times, which is absolutely insane. You can get 20 basic armor just for attacking, which, and the attack speed is crazy. So, of course, this is another great card. So those are 3 1-point early game cards that you can have for quite a bit until you build up some more attribute points and get some more gems under your belt. Now, I know that objectives are very important as a jungler, like green buff, raptors, and even Orb Prime. Flame of Zechen is a great card for growth because it lets you just instantly click on a minion, a prime, or raptors and just deal a ton and a ton and a ton of damage. So this is just a great card. Plus it's Cultivate, so we only need to spend about 4 points and it'll be free for us to get anyway, which is fantastic because by the time you get it, you will spend 4 points. So why not, Then if we want to be a bit more aggressive, we can have certain cards over others, but I prefer my junglers to be a bit tankier, on the tankier side. So Green Spring is a great card. 20 basic armor, regenerative rust, 8.4 health regen while out of combat. Now, while Rampage has a passive regen bonus, the 20 basic armor from this card will help a lot when attacking carries. So this is also a pretty good card to consider, and you don't have to use every single one of these 12 cards. You can experiment with them and have some early to mid lane cards. So that was an early game card-ish. This one, I mean, it's more of a transition from early to mid game, so we should probably leave it at that before going on into the mid stuff, because like I said, let's go on to the other loaf of bread and let's talk about our final cards and what we want our Rampage to look like in the end. So like I said, we want him to be pretty tanky. We want him to be the center of attention. So what does that mean? Well, if we want him to be tanky, we want him to be the center of attention, we want him to be taking as much damage as possible, so we should be looking for cards that give a lot of health, and also maybe some really cool effects in the process. So I'm looking here, I'm like, hey, maybe what's going on? So Unbroken Spirit is a really good card. It gives a bunch of health, a bunch of ability armor. I have this in my Sevarog deck. I would say this is just a great card for tanks in general. Costs 9 vitality, so of course we're going to be building tanky anyway, because we already know we're set on agility and vitality, and that would be great. One of the Tribe is also a really good, very, very late game card. This is if the game goes very, very late. Group power, gain 15 power for each nearby allied hero. That's a really good card to have as well. And if we're going to continue being tanky, then we can also have this one card. We don't actually have the order. I was thinking of my Sevarog deck for a second of Godmother Vigilant, but we can make do. You have Unstable Cyborg here that gives you basic armor. It gives you 20% chance to deal 125 ability damage to all nearby enemies when taking damage. The cooldown is 0.4 seconds. So, you know, you can't just be like blowing up like that, but it's still a pretty good card to have in the late game, because you're going to be the center of your attention, you're going to have a bunch of basic armor, and it's going to give you some more power. Here you have more health with one of the Tribe, and here you have more health and more ability armor. So we covered all of the quotients, I guess, or the quotas, rather, not quotients. This isn't math. Well, it kind of is math, but you get the point. All the quotas of being a tank. Health, ability armor, and basic armor, plus we have some pretty cool abilities. Now, let's make sure that our math adds up. You can have a maximum of 25 attribute points in every category. So we have 9 vitality here, 8 vitality here, that's 17, and 3 vitality here. That's a total of 20 vitality. So that's going to be pretty late game. I have not gotten that far in a lot of my games, so I doubt that you will really need to have that much. Plus, you'll also need 3, 4, and then another 10, so that's 17 in agility. So that's a total of 37 attribute points, or 37,000 gold, which is quite a bit. So now that we have our super duper late game, like this is our top of the roof, this is what we would probably want in the very end, because it's pretty good for him. Let's look at some more mid-range cards that might be, you know, later on in the game, but maybe not super late like these ones, and then vice versa, the early to mid transitions. So for example, let's take a look. So a lot of these cards are still somewhat new to me, so we're taking a look here together. We have Tyrant, for some reason, is not selected yet, because this is an unbelievably amazing card for junglers. Like I said, Greenspring is fantastic, but you don't want to get Greenspring until you get Tyrant. And you just want to rush Tyrant, which what I mean by that is you'll need a total of 6 attribute points for this. That means that you would, you know, get rid of your 1-point cards that we mentioned in the beginning here, you know, your Exoskeleton, Demolitionist, and Living Guardian, and use all of those attribute points to slot into Tyrant. Now, don't worry, you can get the cards back. When you discard the cards, they are not gone forever, so do not worry. You can get them back. Now, you have to be paying attention to the card cost. If the card costed gold and you discard it, you want it back, you need to pay the gold for it again. So Tyrant is a great card to rush because it gives you that amazing, you know, sustainability as a jungler. You're going to be spending a lot of time in the jungle anyway. And then you also have some other cards here. So Growth Totem is a pretty good card to have. Lately, I've been using other cards instead, just because it takes a while for this card to really get a lot of good stuff. And by the time you do, you should already be moving on to your later game cards. So, we have Tyrant, again, searching for kinds of cards that have both agility and vitality, and that also lead to our tankiness. So, this one's pretty good. Speedy Purification, purify yourself and gain 250 move speed for 1.5 seconds. This can help you chase down a target, this can help you remove CC, and it gives you attack speed and basic rampage because we want to build him like a bruiser. We can go ahead and mess around with this card. And also, this is another great card. Thorned Yomi gives you 10 power, 31 basic armor, and returns 65% of damage taken for 4 seconds. You're going to be Rampage, you're going to be regenerating a lot of health, and you're also going to be somewhat tanky. So returning 65% of damage taken for 4 seconds, you can do that because you'll be regenerating health anyway, and it'll be a great card because you'll also be damaging the enemy. So that's also a really good card to have. And then another card that you can have now that is somewhat late game but not completely late game, like these cards over here that are just super duper duper crazy expensive. And notice that cards get more and more expensive as you move down. See, these are 12-point cards, these are 13-point cards, 4 plus 9, and so on and so forth. These are 8-point cards, so that's kind of how you can gauge where these cards are located when you are building your decks on your own. So let's take a look. This is a card I like using on Grux, Nuke Blood Mutant. Gain 15 move speed and 4 attack speed for 6 seconds when you cast an ability, stacks up to 5 times. Rampage doesn't really have cooldown abilities like Grux, his double chop, so I'm not really going to pay attention to that, but we do need a card, and you don't have to completely ignore Intellect when it comes to these attribute points, such as Vengeful Mire. This is a great card, 300 health, 25 basic armor, and you apply 100 move speed slow to nearby enemies after taking 300 damage, which you probably will because you're going to be a tank and you're going to be all up in their face, and you're going to be wanting to absorb all that damage like a sponge. So this is going to be a pretty useful card to have, so why not try and have it with Rampage before we go. So we have 12 cards. You always want to try and get 12 cards, even if you don't know what you want as your 12th card. Just have something there just in case for situations. Let's say that we don't have enough CC. Maybe I want Vengeful Mire. But let's say we do have a lot of CC and you just want to be a tank and you also want to be damaging a lot, then you'll have Thorn Yomi instead, and so on and so forth. As you build decks, you will be getting better and better at this. So that is just the basic terminology and the basic way, the lay of the land of building decks that I like to use. You start with 2 loaves of bread, the little one with the early game cards, the top one with the late game cards, and then you fill the stuff in the middle with whatever you want. Now, with all of this in mind, knowing that you want agility and vitality mainly for Rampage, and maybe we'll have a little bit of intellect, now we go into the attribute points and the gems that you will slot. So we know that Rampage will be tanky, but because of his inert health regeneration from one of his abilities, which you should probably be if you want to have some good sustainability in the jungle in the first 3 to 5 minutes, we are going to be slotting into Jungle Assassin first, because hey, we just want to deal some damage and we got to clear that stuff quickly. If you're playing somebody like Sevarog who doesn't really have any sustainability on his own, you would go into the vitality first and slot into the jungle lifesteal. Now, it doesn't hurt to have both, especially as a jungler, and that's what I like doing because that just makes me very, very efficient. But we do want to focus on our tankiness as Rampage, so we are going to keep going here with the tankiness. I like doing damage reduction for our tanks, I like doing damage return for the tanks, and also pay attention, in the tier 3, 4, and 5 gems, you also have different passives. For example, these are all the same damage return. They all do the same percentage of damage return, 10% basic damage taken, but this one has 6 basic armor, this one has 2.5 power, this one has 35 mana. So pay attention to what you want to do. We want to be tanky, we want basic armor. And we're going to keep on going right round. And we have some really cool vitality cards here. Ferocity, Consume the Dead, stuff like that. Reflexive, Purify. And you really got to think to yourself, do I want to go all the way to this end game with Rampage? Is he the type of hero that will do really well in the end game? And maybe he will. He could scale pretty well. He scales pretty evenly. He's an easy jungler to play a lot and effectively without really knowing how to master the craft. So maybe we do want to go all the way, but at the same time we said that we want him to be a bruiser. So let's take a look at these cards. Right, we have Consume the Dead, we have Ferocity, gain up to 40 attack speed based on your missing health. This could be really good because he does specify an health regeneration, so he might stay in that low set of health regeneration where he's regenerating health but taking damage at the same time and is being nullified, so he might have a lot of attack speed thanks to that. So Ferocity could be really, really, really good. And again, we want to look for the one that gives us the tankiest set here. Ferocity, 60 health. Okay, 60 health it is. We can go ahead and do that, or you can go with power, whatever you want to do. So now, like I said, we are going to need a lot of vitality points and a lot of agility points for that max build. If I remember correctly, I think I said we will need 20 vitality points. So the final gem here is 25 vitality points, which is max. So if you end up going here, then it's really, really late in the game, and the game probably should have been over by now. So if we're Rampage, maybe we will go all the way to the end. I do have this slotted all the way to the end of my Severout build, but let's just get a bit creative here and let's look at these agility gems because we are going to be slotting a little bit into agility as well. We got fast travel, where you gain 40 move speed while out of combat, ruthless, and wealthy. And then we have lifesteal. We have mana generator, which restores 7 mana when you land a basic attack, and we have multi-shot, which is for ranged. And we're not really going to be worrying about slot 19 or 25 because we don't expect on building so much agility. So what I like about this, what I like a lot about these gems is the fast travel gem, because this will help you a lot when it comes to ganking lanes from the jungle rotation. This is actually really useful, especially on Rampage, who already has a good amount of mobility. This will just play to his strengths. So there we go. So we're going to go ahead and click next, and boom, shakalaka. Now we can review to make sure that we did all the math correctly. Let's take a look at our super crazy overpowered final cards that we would have if we went all the way to the end. We would have one of the tribe, which is a card here. It does not show me, for some reason, how many points this is. That looks like a 3, that looks like a 10. Okay, so that's 10. This is 3, that's 9, so that's 12. And then, where is the last card that we decided on? One of the tribe, and unstable cyborg, so this one is 8. So we actually have, yeah, so we do have, like I said, 20 vitality, and we have 17. So we have 17 agility. So if you want, you could stretch it to the 19 agility gem instead of the fast travel gem, but I just want to get this close and out of the way. So this is going to be our Rampage deck, and that is pretty much it. Now, this isn't my Rampage deck, and my final Rampage deck. I'm gonna have to test this deck, obviously, and I'm gonna make a beast build video on it like I always do. But that is basically an in-depth, in the mind of Britik look of how I build decks. Hopefully this has helped people, because I know people have a hard time understanding how to piece this all together. You basically want to start at the hero that you're working for. You want to look at their abilities and see what they're good at. If they're really mobile, if they're tanky, what you should focus on. If you want more damage, focus on agility cards. If you want more tank, focus on vitality. And if you want more mana and outplay like silence cards and slow cards and stun cards, then go with intellect. And that all depends on what type of hero you're building and for what purpose. So like I said, Rampage was going to be tanky, so that's why we have a lot of cards here with a lot of vitality and so on and so forth. And then our gems are going to go along with our cards, because we're going to have a lot of vitality cards. We're going to also have a lot of vitality gems. You want to match these together. So hopefully this in-depth guide was helpful, as well as somewhat quick. I know it's like almost a 20-minute video, but I just wanted to be very thorough with my explanation. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If it did help, please drop a like. It lets me know. I appreciate it so much. I love all you guys so much for supporting me and watching these videos. Thank you so much. And as always, make sure to have a wonderful day. Peace.